Chapter 22. The Warrior's Song. How long has she been in there? It's been too long. Forget it, I'm going in. They had all been told to wait outside while the town healer tended to Farah, but Fald couldn't bear it any longer. He shoved his way past Adun, who was standing watch in front of the door to the healer's shop. But the sight he witnessed upon bursting in stopped him cold. There was blood. So much blood. It was on the floor, on the healer, and all over the table where Farah was laying motionless and pale. "Farah," Fald said, his voice breaking. "I told you to stay outside," the healer chastised. "I've stopped her bleeding, but I need to close the wound now. I can't be dealing with onlookers at this stage. Please, just go outside and pray. Pray to Grom for this girl's life." With that, Fald turned pale and started walking backward, only to be met by the watcher he had just barged past. Adun grasped him by the shoulders. "It's in the hands of our holy matron now, dear boy. I pray with contrition that we may still yet anoint young Farah as the worthy warrior she has proven herself to be. For now, allow Garton's hands to work. His are the most skilled hands of any healer in the whole Horn." Outside, Fald encountered Hela and Senna, who both looked at him with questioning eyes. Hela appeared eager to hear what Fald had seen after he rushed through the door, but the blank look in his eyes and his ashen complexion stayed her tongue. Minutes felt like hours. After what seemed like an eternity later, the door to the shop creaked open. Garton, covered in a bloody apron and wiping yet more blood off his hands with a rag, stepped outside. "She's going to live," he announced bluntly. "She's a tough one. Manny would have succumbed, being so weak from her flame expulsion. But she's lost a lot of blood and needs to Before Garton could finish his sentence, Farah stepped through the doorway behind him. She was alight with the unvanquished flame which offered her otherwise empty eyes the only light they had. "Red," she spoke at half volume. Fald rushed over and pulled her to him. "I'm here, Farah." She hugged his neck and rested her head on his shoulder. "I can speak, Red." 3 days had passed since the Tournament of the Horn. Farah's general health was much improved, though the pain from her freshly cauterized wound frequently caused her to wince and curse. Adun was eager to begin the anointing ceremony, partly for the tradition, but partly because Barrack was becoming more unruly by the day. However, Farah refused to be anointed as a warrior with her arm in the state that it was. She was adamant that she would wait until the metalsmith had crafted a prosthetic to cover her wound, her weakness. No matter who tried to convince her, and everyone tried, she had made up her mind. And, with her newly returned voice, there was no arguing with her. It was the most welcome news in the world when word arrived from the local metalsmith. "Oh, Farah!" Fald beamed. "Guess what Ballard just tasked me with delivering to your waiting hands? Hand? To your hand, for your hand? Here, take your hand." He tossed a package to Farah, who was sitting on the deck of the guest house. She vigorously unwrapped the cloths that were tied together with 2 small strings of twine. Out from them plopped an intricately crafted metal gauntlet that terminated in a sturdy hook. "Is that what you were waiting for?" Fald asked, assessing the design. "I'll know in a moment." She struggled to affix the apparatus with her left hand. "Here, let me help," Fald suggested to Farah's ire, who retracted it from his grasp. "Come on, beautiful. I'm sure it'll get easier the more you do it, but maybe a little help while you're healing isn't a bad idea." "I specifically asked for it to be easy to do up with one hand," she snapped. "You put a buckle on it. How am I supposed to one-hand a buckle with my left hand, Red?" "That's why I'm trying to help you with it, Grumpy." "Don't bother. What's the point? It needs to be redesigned." "It's not getting redesigned, Farah. Ballard would shove it down my throat if I asked for that. He spent the past 3 days working as fast as he could so you could get the anointing done and stop Adun from spinning in circles while he's waiting for you." The two struggled over the hooked gauntlet for a few seconds, trying to force their point, when Fald accidentally pressed a button that was subtly built into the design. In a flash, the hook rotated backwards and seated into the top of the gauntlet. It was replaced in the same motion by a short, serrated saber about half the length of Farah's forearm. "There it is!" Farah exclaimed at the unexpected transformation, delighted. "What in Grom's name is that?" Fald asked in shock. "I take it back. The buckle's fine," she said. "I didn't think you'd done it when I first saw this thing." "You asked for that?" "I'm going to be a warrior, Fald. A one-armed warrior. I want it to be something that makes me more deadly, not less. I saw you in the tournament, Gorgeous, he retorted. You were plenty deadly without the help of a blade. Besides, Thuden warriors don't even use blades. We don't need them with what we can do with the unvanquished flame. Look, Farah said, you guys haven't had to fight Rains, not really, in hundreds of years. I've lived with them my entire life. They use sabers. If they're going to use them against me in a poll, I, for Grom's sake, am going to use one against them too. Hey, okay, Fald drew back and put up his hand. I'm not trying to tell you how to kill Rains. Besides, you're cute when you get all murdery. Farah scowled at Fald as he set to buckling her new weapon over her bandages. I've been meaning to ask you about that, Farah hesitated. Well, about us. What about us? Fald replied with a smile. I mean, I've known you less than a week. Aren't you making some assumptions about us? Like, I get what you said to Adun about us being together was just to let me compete, but no, it wasn't, Fald shot back. We're perfect together. I don't see any reason we shouldn't be. Do you? Farah scoffed and struggled for words while Fald finished adjusting the gauntlet. Don't see any reason? We've barely even spent any time with each other. I hardly know you at all. What do you want to know? Fald asked in return. That's not what I mean, Red. How are you even so sure I'm right for you? Oh, is that all? Well, that's easy. It's our flames, Farah. Haven't you felt it? I felt it the moment you walked into a runt. I just assumed you felt it too. Fald rubbed the back of his neck. What an idiot I am. I didn't consider how new you were to wielding. What do you mean by it's our flames? Have you ever fancied a guy before, like in the calls or something? He asked. No, who would I have? It's not like there was anyone to choose from in a 5-person prison, she retorted. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's not your fault you don't know what Thuten affection is like. When you grow up around it, it doesn't need to be explained. Our flames are unique to each person. When I felt your flame, I mean the very first time I felt it, it was so obvious. You and I were perfect together. I just don't even know how to explain it. I guess I figured you felt like I did. How could you not? Well, where I come from, you at least get to know somebody before trying to make giant leaps in a relationship with them. Fald crinkled his nose. Well, that sounds terrible. He finished his adjustments and looked at Farah now, his comedic veneer disappearing. Don't you feel it, Farah? She stared at her new attachment, turning it each way slowly, considering Fald's question. I don't know what I feel, Red. Fald looked down, then away. Farah could feel his dejection and continued her thought aloud. Everything in my entire life has shattered and flipped upside down in the last couple of weeks, Fald. I'm just trying to keep my head above water right now. She reached out and grabbed his hand with her one good one. Please, just give me time. I don't know how to feel about anything besides Epole right now. That's my mission, and the only thing I know is real. That city has to burn. I can't let that target slip for anything. Too many people are relying on us few to fight for them. Fald looked back toward her, but not into her eyes. I get it, but I know how I feel, so just know while you wait, that's what's real to me. He let go of her hand, sniffed once, cleared his throat, and turned to walk back to the main house. Farah sighed. She pressed the button on her gauntlet, flipping the blade to the hook and the hook to the blade again. She rested her face in her hand, holding her eyes shut, then slammed her saber into the post of the deck. What is wrong with you, you idiot? She muttered under her breath as the pain in her arm reminded her of her fresh wound. She jerked the blade free from the wooden beam and started after Fald, who had nearly reached the other house. Before she could get far, though, a voice shouted from her left. Oh, thank mighty Grom, it's finished! It was Adun. He was shuffling as quickly as his loose robes would allow him toward Farah with open arms. I heard from Ballard that your tool was complete, and I see now that it fits, and therefore... Yes, I know, Farah snapped at the Watcher. The anointing. The anointing, he echoed in a cheery voice. We mustn't wait any longer, my dear. Beric has already begun grieving. No, we mustn't wait any longer. Come, let's hurry to the altar and begin the ceremony. Farah looked back at the main house once more. Fald was nowhere to be seen. She sighed heavily. All right, let's do it. The sound of a large ceremonial gong resounded throughout the streets of Irunt, signaling the impending mid-morning anointment ceremony. Adun awaited before the altar while Jortan, astride his enormous hullhound Taruf, stood next to Barak, who was every bit as large. Jortan was clearly using Taruf to keep Barak under control. However, considering that both hounds were of prestigious leader lines, it was a tenuous attempt at best. Both hounds periodically growled and nipped at each other while Jortan attempted to retain control through his melted flame with Taruf. People began walking into the town circle, congregating in various groups while finding their seats. "Hurry, hurry, everyone!" Adun encouraged the attendees. "We mustn't wait a moment longer!" People paid little mind to the old watcher's entreaty and continued to mingle. Adun, scowling at the lack of their concern, exploded his flame. The shockwave blew everyone's hair back, including the hullhounds, and drew their attention. His scowl changed to a gracious smile. Yes, very good. Be welcome, children of Grom, on this day of celebration. For today we are blessed to anoint only the second warrior of Irunt in the past 3 generations. Grom's favor has been clearly revealed through the tribulations of the Tournament of the Horn a mere 3 days ago. This favor shall be recognized and ratified by Holy Grom's anointing upon the bearer of Grom's warrior mantle, Farah of Irunt. Drums began beating as everyone's flames flared to its cadence. Farah walked out from behind the gong towards Adun. Hela, Senna, Ardeen, and Fald sat in the front row. When Farah stood beside Adun, she whispered something in his ear. I see. Very well, Adun replied. A minor correction. This day we anoint Farah of Kol. Fald's eyes snapped wide open at that amendment. I knew it, came the voice of Arund, the town consul. What did I tell you, Adun? Outrageous! Just like I said. This called child comes into our hospitality, then enters our sacred tournament on false pretenses just to throw it back in our faces. Before Adun could address his accusations, Farah raised her gauntlet, swapped its hook to its saber, and pointed it right at Arund. You! She shouted while beginning to walk towards Arund, who sat prototypically in the back. You slimy, two-faced, babbling tub of filth! Arund stiffened as Farah's wrath zeroed in on him. If it weren't for Scatter, this village you're responsible for wouldn't have even had a single warrior in your lifetime. You dare look upon a Thutan powerful enough to win your sacred tournament as if I stole it from you? Her flame was rising with every slow, intentional step towards the now trembling man. We were all there the day you didn't enter the tournament, you spineless slug! I lived my entire life under Rayan rule, under the pitiless blades of their Asperite sabers, forced against my will to serve them as a slave! Never in my wildest dreams would I have guessed that any self-respecting Thutan who lived free from that would somehow be more pathetic than a Rayan slave! She now stood one step away from Arund, flame at full force, pointing the tip of her blade at his nose. And yet here you are, more pathetic than anyone I've ever met, sitting, wetting your pants while some cold child insults you to your face. The sweat running down Arund's face was now mixing with fresh tears and snot as he began to hyperventilate. Do something about it, Farah screamed. Show this cold brat your Thutan spirit! Farah! Adun called out from behind her. That's quite enough! Farah held her position for 5 more uninterrupted moments while Arund dissolved into a quivering mess. She then retracted her blade and dropped her flame. I knew it, she snarked, referencing Arund's original protest. Farah walked back to the altar in total silence, then turned to address the crowd of gathered Aruntians. I am Farah of Kol because I refuse to represent a tribe who won't even represent itself. I'm going to return and free the Kald of Ipol, my true people. Grom has declared it already. I'm proud to be of Kol and won't have any of my glory stolen by the likes of that despicable filthworm. No one said a word. Hela's mouth was agape. Senna smiled a toothy smile after her diatribe. Fald, also looking impressed by the girl he admired, was probably just happy to know her sudden change of name wasn't due to their earlier conversation. Adun, breaking the silence, made an attempt to diffuse the tension of the moment. Well, that is the kind of fire one should expect from a chosen warrior of Grom. Oh my. But now let's begin the anointing ceremony so that Beric and Farah may perhaps calm their spirits. He faced Farah and drew out what appeared to be a dagger from his robes. Behold, he shouted, the ancient Iruntian lance, sculpted from the bone of a fallen Rayan warrior of old and honed to a razor's edge. As it is foretold, the evil Rayans of accursed soul took first blood. Adun flicked his wrist, cutting Farah's scalp just below the hairline. The slash was so clean and fast she didn't even feel the laceration it caused. But a moment later, blood began to run down the width of her forehead, creating a mask of liquid red over her face. And we, as the righteous children of Grom, did take up arms to become mighty fire starters, burning the wickedness of soul by the love of Grom that arose within us. Adun raised both of his hands to the sky and proclaimed, Blessed matron of love, sacred bringer of light and fire, holy Grom, valiantly hath thy child fought, and dauntless shall she bear thy cause against the darkness that threatens we, thy chosen children. May thy everlasting blessing be upon this warrior, Farah of Gaul! To that declaration, the people affirmed, Grom's love! Adun then motioned to his left, at which point Jortan brought Beric close. The Watcher reached out his hand, placing it on Beric's head. The surly hound began to growl, baring his teeth. Then, Adun started to chant in the same way Godden had with Hela in the Understreet, and the way Scatter had with Farah by the outer wall. The beast's flame lowered as he calmed into silence. Come now, warrior. Adun motioned toward Farah, who stepped closer at his behest. He placed his free hand on her bloodied forehead. Now, Farah, Firestarter, raise your flame as high as you can, as quickly as you can. Farah closed her eyes to focus, gritted her teeth, then erupted in a brilliant red flash of light, just as she had with Venra in the tournament. But this time, the explosive power transmitted through Adun into Beric instead of blowing him backward. Beric snapped out of the trance, luminous red breaking through his thick black pelt, eyes alight. He looked at Farah, who shone with the same radiance, then walked over and lay prone at her feet. It is complete! Adun shouted with jubilation. Grom's love! Replied everyone in attendance. After the anointing ceremony, a number of Aruntians gathered to congratulate Farah for putting Arund in his place. Not least of which was Ardeen, who hugged Farah like a daughter, somewhat embarrassing her to the entertainment of Fald, who watched with a grin. Once everyone had given their congratulations to the newest Thutan warrior, Adun pulled Farah and Hela to the side to speak with them. Who would have imagined, he started, 2 young girls of the Cull would be risen up by the grace of Grom to become heroes of our age? Marvelous, simply marvelous. I didn't have to imagine it, Farah answered. Grom chose me for it. Oh, yes, without a doubt she did, dear child, Adun concurred. No, Farah shot back at his patronizing tone. I mean it. I was chosen a day before the tournament. This literal assertion made the Watcher take 2 steps backward. What do you mean by that, Firestarter? What did you see? Grom visited me in a dream, she replied. At least, I think it was Grom. It had to be Grom. Visited, you say? What did you see, child? Eyes. Red eyes against a black sky. Hela stiffened at that description. They called for me, and I answered, Farah continued. They called me child, and I just knew I was their child. It's hard to explain. It was like more of a feeling than anything else, but it was undeniable. I believe you, Farah, Hela said. Please, tell us more, Firestarter, Adun added. Grom told me before I even knew there was a tournament that if I defeated everyone who stood against me, she would grant me the deepest desire of my heart. Hela gasped. And after you won the tournament, your voice. Praise be to our holy matron, declared Adun, raising his hands to the heavens. She is making herself known to her children in marvelous ways. For I, too, received a vision of Grom only a day before the tournament. I must admit, dear Farah, I wasn't as sure of it as you were. You see, the vision I received told me that you must be tested, and that Grom's favor would rest upon you if you were." The girls looked at each other, smiles illuminating their faces. "Mighty is our blessed matron," Adun proclaimed. "She has seen a way and risen up a mighty warrior as well as a worthy avatar to wreak her holy vengeance upon the inhabitants of the pole." He then placed his hands on both of their shoulders and pulled them in closer. "Mighty Farah, I was most impressed by your admonishment of Arund earlier. Epole must fall, it must burn, but it will take the force of many fire starters to do so, not just you and the Avatar. At this time, the Hullhorn only has so many warriors at its disposal. To complete this urgent goal, a coordinated assault of all our warriors must be brought to bear on that wicked city." Hilla frowned. "What do you mean, Adun?" Then, out from behind the cover of the large ceremonial gong stepped two unexpected yet familiar men. Well, congratulations, Miss Farah." The voice came from a wide, mischievous grin. Musings of the Watchers. Each tribe of the Hullhorn must have a cadre of warriors to defend it and to offer up in a time of war. Since the Great Culling, many of the tribes not only failed to hold their warrior numbers high, but, regrettably, do not even have a single warrior to their name. If the mantle of warrior becomes lost to time, so will the knowledge of the skills to adeptly wield the unvanquished flame. Grom forbid the proud Thutan race die out from their own pitiable ignorance.